Thank you, Chairperson. Allow me to make a small correction because I need my job when I get back home tomorrow. Yes, I'm Director of Peace and Security, not Oceans and Security, at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Chairperson, Honorable Ministers, Excellencies, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, may I first take this opportunity to congratulate the India Foundation with its powerful organizing committee and all their partners for what is truly an insightful forum that it has been. And I also would like to express my appreciation to the organizers and the government and the people of this incredibly beautiful country of Maldives for the warm reception and hospitality. In addition, I would like to convey the appreciation of the Cabinet Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kenya to our Indian colleague and the leadership of the Indian Foundation for inviting her to this IOC 2019. Unfortunately, she was not able to come because of competing demands on her schedule. But I convey our warm regards and wishes for a successful event. Allow me to share our perspectives and experiences in the Western Indian Ocean, particularly the Horn of Africa, on issues that are relevant to IOC 2019 theme, that's securing the Indian Ocean region, traditional and non-traditional challenges. Excellencies, Kenya and many countries in Africa are increasingly and deliberately prioritizing the blue economy as the next frontier for creating employment and economic growth. You will recall that over 16,000 participants from across the world had a strategic conversation during the Sustainable Blue Economy Conference that took place in Nairobi in November 2018. These engagements were inspired by the unique global opportunity to build greater prosperity for the blue economy resources for the present and future generations. For us in Kenya, the Indian Ocean is the single most important and indispensable resource for our blue economy strategy. Yesterday, we've heard a lot about the importance of the Indian Ocean region, the population that takes care of 2.5 billion, and the sea lands that it provides. I will not go into that, but I'd like to say that the potential of the blue economy cannot be realized in an environment of security threats, such as pollution, piracy, illegal, unreported, and unregulated fishing, and other illicit activities around the water bodies. Yet, it is widely acknowledged that the maritime domain for many states in the Western Indian Ocean region is inundated by these threats. Indeed, the emerging threats such as maritime terrorism, climate change, and increasing competition over resources have emerged as grave security threats that can fundamentally undermine the prospects of the blue economy, particularly in developing economies such as ours. I want to zero in on three of the major concerns. And the first one is pervasive conflict and state fragility. The Horn of Africa, as many would acknowledge, remains a volatile region characterized by state fragility, resulting from incessant interstate conflict and poor governance. Arising from state fragility is the existence of ineffectively governed spaces due to weak or insufficient security apparatus. On the other hand, and governed spaces, particularly those in close proximity to the ocean, provide conditions that facilitate maritime insecurity. Clearly, it would be futile to institute measures to address challenges at sea without attending to the land-based root causes. In this regard, Kenya, together with other countries in the region and internationally, have continued to invest heavily in peace and state-building processes with a view to ensuring state effectiveness by, amongst others, deepening democratization values and practices, entrenching inclusive political and economic participation, and pursuing a shared regional vision of prosperity. One of the threats which is a factor of state fragility is terrorism. Kenya has borne the brunt of terrorism orchestrated by Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group with connections with Al-Qaeda. The people of Somalia also continue to face incessant attacks by Al-Shabaab. If not swiftly and decisively dealt with, Al-Shabaab could soon take control of the waters of the Western Indian Ocean and beyond. For this reason, Kenya has relentlessly argued for inclusion of Al-Shabaab in the UN Security Council Resolution 1267 sanctions regime. The measure would contribute significantly in denying Al-Shabaab the financial resources that are critical for funding its terror activities. We believe that all countries that recognize terrorism as an existential threat should support this cause. The second issue is about emerging extra-regional dynamics that could have destabilizing effects in an already volatile region. In recent years, the Horn of Africa has become a theater of increasing interest which add to the mix that catalyzes the inherent fragility. Today, the Horn of Africa has to contend with uncoordinated and often competing external actors, evidenced by an unprecedented surge of military and naval bases, as well as a scramble for ports along the African coastline of the Red Sea and the Western Indian Ocean. A lot of the interest that the Horn of Africa region has and continue to attract are well-intentioned. However, they bear a huge risk portfolio in terms of conflict that could result from the growing rivalries and competition among various actors. The challenge for us is how to manage these interests in a manner that secures the interests of the regional countries while guaranteeing the rights and freedoms that countries have to enter into bilateral arrangements with foreign powers, as well as facilitating international cooperation in establishing and maintaining a secure marine domain. The third item of concern is climate change, which is the defining security and development challenge of our generation and is certainly the world's most gigantic externality. The impacts of climate change are manifest in many ways, including rising sea levels, frequent storms, heat waves, protracted and intense droughts that result in conflicts in developing world over dwindling resources. In fact, it is no longer a theoretical phenomenon. It's real for us in Africa, but perhaps it's more real for large ocean states such as this beautiful Maldives. as their very existence are threatened as a consequence of rise in sea level. And yet, paradoxically, they are the least contributors to the things that lead to global warming. Kenya has a good record of commitment to climate change response, as underscored by our ratification and implementation of key relevant international instruments. Our commitment is further exemplified by our investment on renewable energy, which now accounts for over 70% of our installed capacity, compared to the world average of 24%. Inasmuch as the mitigation of the negative effects of climate change is critical, it's just a treatment of the symptoms. Greenhouse gas emissions must ultimately be slashed to avert the devastating levels of global warming. Consequently, the collaborative fight against the scourge of climate change entails every nation reaffirming their commitments under the Paris Agreement by doing their respective parts towards the goal of limiting global temperature rises to 1.5 degrees. This requires unprecedented transitions in all aspects of society, including the transformation of energy, agricultural, urban, and industrial systems, engagement of non-state actors, and integration of climate action into broader public policy and development frameworks. Having a robust institutional mechanism is critical not only for evolving norms and rules, but also the implementation of such norms and rules. However, the challenges we face are not necessarily because of lack of institutional mechanisms, because we are not short of them. Indeed, we have our main institutional mechanism being the Indian Ocean Rim Association, which has become a critical tool for strengthening regional cooperation and sustainable development within the Indian Ocean region. In the Western Indian Ocean, IGAD and AU have marine security strategies, but within the regions, we have quite a number of other mechanisms that have been mentioned in this meeting, one of them being the Djibouti Code of Conduct, and the other one, which was mentioned by the Honorable Minister from Seychelles, is the Program to Promote Regional Maritime Security, MAS. And then we have the Indian Ocean Commission, which has become a champion for the cause of small island states in regional and international fora. We also have the contact group on piracy of the coast of Somalia. And Kenya will be privileged to chair this mechanism from January 2020, taking over from Mauritius. And on this note, I would like to commend the government of Mauritius for the strides made during its tenure. Indeed, we are fully in support of the decision of Mauritius to consult the UN Secretary General today over the unfortunate and ill-advised release of convicted pirates by Somalia. This action is indeed a setback in our collaborative efforts to secure the Indian Ocean. Allow me to conclude by emphasizing the need for robust institutional frameworks for managing the threats to regional peace and human security through the strengthening of multilateral cooperation based on mutual respect, equality, and in line with international law. We are not necessarily calling for the creation of new mechanisms, but rather underscoring the fact that any such mechanism must of necessity bring together littoral states, regional non-littoral states, and key stakeholders. The main priority for such mechanisms should be to formulate principles and rules of engagement designed to ensure that activities in the Indian Ocean are well coordinated with a view to guaranteeing security and sustainable use of the ocean consistent with international law. Finally, coordination and collaboration between regional and sub-regional mechanisms is key to facilitating synergy in activities being undertaken to address the challenges in the Indian Ocean region.